Okay, we're back with Professor Solis and Strategies for Success. So now today we're going to look at factoring trinomials when the leading coefficient is not a 1. So let's recall when we have standard form ax squared plus bx plus c that we're looking at this coefficient right here. We want to make sure when it's not a 1, how do we factor? So we'll do a couple problems today. We'll do some that have positive, some that have negative signs. Because a lot of times we get the positive ones, it's those negative signs that come in, and then we're like, what are we doing? So we'll start here. So in our previous videos, we did one when the leading coefficient was not a 1. Now we're going to do it when it is a 1. So we use a method called the AC method, A times C. So what that means, we're going to multiply the A times the C. So in our problem, our A value is 2 and our C value is 3. So we're going to say 2 times 3 is 6. Then we take 6 and we want the factors of 6 that equal the middle term, the B term. So what are my factors of 6? Well, 2 times 3 because we just did that. Then we also have 1 times 6. But because both of these are positives, we don't have to worry about listing the negatives. And then we add together. We're trying to get a 7, so 1 plus 6 would be 7. So those are the ones we need. Now we bring down the first term, 2x squared. And our middle terms would be the two factors, the 1 and the 6. But when you write those, you have to put the variable with it. You can say 1x, or you can just say x, plus 6x. Then we bring down the last term. That would be 3. So what we did is we turned a trinomial into 4 terms, and that's what lets us use that AC method. Now that we have 4 terms, we bring in what we call the grouping method. You group the first pair, and you group the second pair. So pair means 2 terms. Once you group the pairs, now you pull out what we remember as the GCF, the greatest common factor. What's the greatest common factor in 2x squared and an x? Well, I can pull out 1x. When I pull out, that's my GCF, what's left over? X times what? We need a 2 here, but I also need another x. So 2x would be left over after I pull an x out. And then what's left over when I pull an x out of the 1x? Just a 1. So GCF, this is leftover. Then we go to the second pair. What's my GCF of 6x and 3? Well, we can probably factor out a 3 from 3 and a 3 from 6. So if I pull a 3 out of 6, I'm left with 2. Remember, you're dividing, not subtracting. Then I still have an x left over. And if I pull 3 out of 3, I'm left with 1. Remember, you're dividing. If you're doing grouping correctly, the 2 parentheses should be exactly the same, signs and all. Now we do one more step. We group, I'm going to put a little arrow here. You group the GCFs together in one parenthesis, and then you put what we call the common factor. So our GCFs is the x and the 3, so we'll group those together in the first parenthesis. Our common factor would be the 2x plus 1. So once you have your 2 binomials, you have factored completely using the AC method. So this is nice because of the positives. Now we want to try it when you have a negative. All right, so we're going to do the same process. We're going to have to adjust our signs. All right, so AC method. Excuse me one second. I was going to sneeze there for a sec. Okay. Here's our next trinomial. 6x squared plus 5x minus 4. And check, is it written in order? Our ax squared, bx, c? Sure is. Now we take our a, 6 times negative 4 would give us a negative 24. Now we need the factors that's going to get us that 5 in the middle. Okay, What times what gives us negative 24? 8 times 3, but that's a positive. So one of these needs to be a negative. But here's the thing with negatives. It can also be a negative. I can flip the sign. Other factors of 24, 2 and 12, 6 and 4. But remember, one of them has to be negative, but we want a 5 in the middle. Negative 8 plus 3, that's a negative 5. Won't work. Negative 2 plus 12, that's a positive 10. So 8 plus negative 3, that's what's going to get us a positive 5. So remember, we bring down the first terms. We're turning 3 terms into 4. And remember, your 2 middle terms that total the middle, you got to put in that variable. So that'll be 8x minus 3x, and bring down the last term, minus 4. So now we have 4 terms. Now we group. Group the first pair. Now the second pair, you got that negative sign. Make sure you bring that sign with it. All right, remember we had to pull out the GCF. So I'm looking at 6x squared, 8x. I could pull out an x, and 6 is 2 and 3, no 3 and 8, but a 2. So we can pull out 2x, and what are we left over with? 2 times what gets us back to 6? 3. X times what gets us back to x squared? X. And then 2 times what gets us back to 8? 4. I got an x. I don't need another x, but don't forget your sign there. Now we go to the second pair, and remember we're pulling out GCF. Now keep in mind from the last problem, we want to make sure it looks just like that one. We're close, we just have a sign difference. So I could pull out a negative 1. This is the one that tricks a lot of students. They don't think they can pull a 1 for a GCF, but you can. If I pull out a negative 1, I'm left with a positive 3x, and I'm left with a positive 4. And voila, they both match. Yay! So now we just got to put them together. If you remember what we said earlier, we put the GCFs in one factor, and we put the common factor in the second parenthesis. 2x minus 1, that's our GCFs. Times the common factor, the same in both, was the 3x plus 4. We have factored completely when the leading coefficient is not a 1. This takes practice. So you want to do these problems that we just did the same to do them again by yourself. Don't look at what we wrote before and try it by yourself. Okay, see you next time.